so hopefully we can view it afterwards. And so please go ahead, Frank, and you have about 20 minutes. I'll let you know once we reach 3 minutes to the end.
Thank you, David, for the introduction. And it is with great pleasure to kick off this rCITI seminar series. I know there might be some audience from outside UNSW. A big welcome to all of you. And as David mentioned, today I'll be talking about some recent work that we have been done on macroscopic modeling of parking. Because of the time limitation, which is about 20 minutes, so obviously I can't focus on all the technical details. So my focus will be on the big picture so that you can understand what work we have done in this area. So first of all, of course, I want to acknowledge the help from rCITI and Randwick City Council. So the project that I've been doing is modeling parking, which is led by Associate Professor Taha Rashidi at UNSW, and this work is also in collaboration with Randwick City Council. So, so in this talk, it will be two parts. So the first part, I will be talking about some macroscopic fundamental diagram fundamentals, so which will help you gain a better idea of what these are, and then following these fundamentals, I'll introduce our recent work on the macroscopic modeling of parking. So first of all, what is macroscopic fundamental diagram or network fundamental diagram, or in short, MFD or NFD? So it is a bivariate relationship between space mean flow, density, and speed. So here I'm showing two figures. One figure shows the link level data, which are flows versus occupancy. So occupancy here can be treated as density since they pretty much measure the same thing. So as you can see in the figure on the left, if we are looking at the link level, there are a huge scatter in the data, and however, it was found back in 2008 that if you aggregate all the link data all together and look at the network as a whole, you'll see that the scatter actually disappear, and you get a pretty good well-defined shape of the curve. And this curve is actually named the macroscopic fundamental diagram, or network fundamental diagram, or network macroscopic fundamental diagram. So there are you might see three names in the literature, but they pretty much refer to the same thing. So these are network fundamental diagrams. So what are the applications of MFD? So here is a brief summary of the applications of MFD. Of course, this taxonomy is by no means complete. There might be some extra work in this area that are not included, but here I believe that most of the important work on MFD are included. And you can see there are two main streams. One is to investigate MFD from a traffic flow theory perspective, and the other is for network modeling, of course. And today, I'll be talking about some work, as I previously mentioned, on parking. So before I officially going into the modeling part, it is I think it is good to just briefly introduce the building block of how MFD can be used to model traffic. So for example, the most simple example is a single reservoir or region model. So here you can treat it as a black box. So you have no clue or no information about the details within this region. So as you can see, the only variable that you have is the macroscopic accumulation, which is the small n. And of course you have the input, which is the F, and you have the output, which is denoted by G. And by this simple ordinary differential equation, you can actually describe the dynamics of this single reservoir or single region, and this is pretty straightforward. However, you may wonder where does MFD play a role in this equation? So actually, MFD plays its role in calculating the GN. So here, as you can see, the GN is equal to the accumulation n times the speed. So here speed is determined from the MFD. So we are using the speed density MFD here to calculate the speed, and the speed times and the speed value times the accumulation is what we usually term the production of the network. So if you calculate the production and you divide the production by L, which is the average travel distance within the region, then what you get is the trip completion or the outflow. So which is of course here denoted by the capital G. So putting these two equations together, this simple system can be described mathematically. So of course, this is very simple. This is just for a single region. And if you have multiple regions, or a multi-reservoir or multi-region model, then of course things are getting more complex. Of course, two additional modules that need to be factored in. One is the route choice, and the other is the transfer flows. So the details of these multi-region or multi-region models will not be discussed today. But if you're interested, you can also go to these references and check the details. So with this, I will now introduce some recent work on macroscopic modeling of parking. So there will be 3 models discussed. Again, details will be not covered due to time limitation. So I hope you get the big picture of what we have done. So first, we have developed our microsimulation model in Vism to study the parking behavior. So this is a study area, which is in the Coogee area, which is in Coogee in Sydney. So the study area is actually bounded by the black lines, and of course you can see there is an off-street parking lot, which is denoted by the red rectangle or square. So on the right, you can see a figure showing the layout of the Vism microscopic simulation model. So this model was initially developed by Dr. Farshid at UNSW. So based on this initial model, we further added some parking search behavior in it to more realistically represent drivers cruising for parking behavior. So in this figure, for the blue lines actually represent the parking spaces along the curbside, and so that's where the drivers can park their cars. And so in terms of the searching behavior, which is obviously the most critical part of this model, we adopt the principle of proximity. So in short, it means that for an individual driver, he has a destination parking lot, but if the destination parking lot is full, obviously he cannot park there. So then he will start cruising and start cruising to find a free spot. And this cruising behavior follows the principle of proximity, meaning that he will search the adjacent parking lots at first, instead of going further away to search for other parking lots. So, and as you can see here, this figure basically shows the searching strategy or the parking behavior of each individual. And of course, you can see this for a typical 4 intersection. If the target parking lot is full, which is indicated by red, then for this driver, he has 3 alternatives in the downstream of the intersection, and then he'll just perform a random choice with equal probability between these 3 candidate lots, and then he will go to the next parking lot and search. Of course, if that candidate lot is still full, then he will continue his search until he finally finds a free spot. So this is the logic of the parking search behavior. So this is the microsimulation model. So in terms of the model results, I'll show together with the other 2 models that I'll be introducing in the following slides. So the second model is accumulation-based model. So as the name indicates, so now we are using the accumulation as the key variable in the model. But this model is still, we're looking at a single region, but this single region is a little bit different from when there is no parking behavior at all, because now with parking, we actually have different states of the vehicles. So here I'm showing a graph that illustrate different groups of vehicles or different pool or different families of vehicles within this single region. And you can see we have vehicles move, for example, we have vehicles moving to park on street, which means that these vehicles want to park on street, but currently they haven't started cruising yet, and they are still moving to their destinations. So similarly, we have moving to park off street, and it means that these vehicles are moving, are intending to park off street, but still they haven't reached the off street parking lot, and they are still moving to the destination. And of course, we have the other groups which are moving to traverse or to pass through the area without any parking need. And of course, we have the cruising for parking group, and then the parking off street and parking off street groups, which represent vehicles that have already parked. So for this single region with multiple families of vehicles, their flow interactions are indicated by the dashed arrows in the figure. And based on this graph, we can actually establish a system of mass conservation equations to describe the system dynamics of this single region, single region. So that's the working mechanism of this accumulation-based model. Of course, this is a model, and the model needs to be normally needs to be calibrated and validated. So, and the question is actually quite interesting, because now we are using a macroscopic model to describe very macroscopically detailed parking search behavior. So the question is, can this macroscopic model actually accurately describe this micro behavior? So what we did was we used the micro simulation as the baseline, and then we do a model calibration of this accumulation-based model to see whether the results of those models are consistent. So of course, here, in terms of model calibration, we have three parts. So first, you need to calibrate the MFD, then you need to calibrate the average distances, and then eventually you need to calibrate the relationship between parking occupancy and distance to park. So since the time is running pretty fast, so I'll be a little bit quicker, so the details will not be discussed. But the point here is that as long as I calibrate this accumulation-based model, which is macroscopic in nature, then the results are actually pretty similar to the microscopic model. So here I'm showing 4 time series. So on the top row, I'm showing the accumulation of off-street parking and on-street parking, and on the second row, I'm showing the network accumulation and speed. As you can see, the accumulation model pretty much tracks the average trend of the micro simulation model, because the accumulation model is deterministic, so you don't see any fluctuations. But because the micro simulation model is stochastic, so we run 10 random seed, and of course there are fluctuations. So this is the accumulation-based model. So the third model is the trip-based model. So different from the accumulation-based model, we're now not tracking the accumulation. Instead, we are tracking the travel trajectories of each individuals. But here, the trajectory is a little bit different from its normal meaning. So the trajectory are actually trajectories of events. For example, this is a simple trajectory of a traveler. So you can see, first, the traveler enters the network, then it starts cruising for parking, and then I find a free parking spot and park, and then parking duration fulfilled and redepart, and finally leave the network. So these are event trajectory of this traveler. and the trip-based model is actually simulating this event trajectory of every individual traveler. And because of its individualization, we can actually account for heterogeneous drivers in the network. For example, we can account for travel distance, we can account for parking duration, we can account for value of time. Of course, there are a little bit of math behind, but again, details will be not discussed. But Perhaps the most important equation is this one, which is an integration, but don't be scared. This is actually pretty simple. So within the integration, you have the speed MFD, and you're integrating this speed from within a certain time interval. And this certain time interval is actually the time for a particular driver to travel in the network. So then you can imagine if you integrate the speed across this time interval, that gives you the travel distance of this traveler. And this is the beauty of the trip-based model. So it actually tracks the individual travelers by updating his travel distance in the network. So the simulation mechanism of the trip-based model is here. And as I said, this is a event-based simulation technique. And here we have different events which are represented by the rectangles here. So of course, you have waiting to enter, which means that you haven't entered the network. And then if you enter the network, then you're moving to your destination before cruising. And of course, then you have to make a decision between parking on street, off street, or simply give up parking and park someone else beyond this region. So. And of course, the arrows in this figure represents the parking related transition events. So, and they connect the parking related states or the events that may occur in this network. So this is the trip-based model simulation framework. And again, a model again similar to the accumulation-based model, we did some calibration and validation. And so these are the results that are pretty similar to what I have previously shown. So we calibrate the MFD, we calibrate the relationship between cruising distance versus parking occupancy, both of which are shown here. But of course, because the trip-based model is stochastic, so as opposed to the deterministic accumulation-based model, so we actually add a bit of noise or randomness in the MFD, as you can see by the dots in the figure. So these are the these are the results for MFD and the relationship, and these are the calibration for the trip distances. Because we are individualizing each traveler, so the distance should also be individualized. So these are the results extracted from the micro simulation, and we estimate or we feed a kernel density to it. And based on this kernel density, we can sample different travel distances for different travelers in the network. Of course, this makes the trip-based model stochastic. So these four, again, similar to what I have shown earlier, these are the results of the trip-based model. And you can see I'm now comparing three models all together. So you see the trip-based model, you see the accumulation-based model, and you see the micro-simulation model all together in this figure. So, and again, as you can see, in terms of four time series, which are the number of off-street accumulation, the number of on-street accumulation, as well as the network accumulation and the network speed, the trend or the trend in this time series are quite consistent between these three models, indicating that the macroscopic model, as long as they are well calibrated, can actually be used to represent a microscopic parking behavior. And this is a quite interesting finding in this study. Of course, there are more results on this work, but if you're interested, you can check the references that have been shown in the slides, or maybe discuss with me after the seminar presentation. And with this, I'm going to conclude my presentation today. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you very much, Frank. So I don't know if it's working. Yep. So is there any questions? So you are free to just unmute your mic if you have a question, or directly type it in the chat, and I can, there's a chat for everyone, and I can ask the question as you prefer. Okay, so I'll start with a question for you, Frank. So you have developed 3 models, right? In the end.
Yes, yes.
And when you compare the 3 models, would you say that one model is consistently more useful to describe parking behavior, or in the end, are there some non-dominance effect, like some models always being better in some cases, but not in all cases?
Um, so, um, in term let me think. Of course, so if you want to model the initially, if one is thinking about modeling microscopic parking behavior, then I would say, of course, go with the microscopic model, because in that model you're actually explicitly modeling the cruising behavior of each individual parker, in each individual driver. But then actually we have the question ourselves that since we see a lot of macroscopic models in the literature, and of course there are macroscopic models for parking. Can this macroscopic model actually accurately represent this macroscopic behavior? So that's the initial aim or the motivation. And then after we develop the 2 macroscopic models, so as I showed, we actually did a calibration against the microscopic simulation model. So we extract the data from micro simulation and we calibrate the macroscopic model. And the results show that although the macroscopic model did not account, they do not account any microscopic level of parking search behavior, but on a macroscopic level, they can still accurately produce results such as network accumulation, network speed, or the accumulation of on-street or off-street parking lots. So that's that's our finding, which is quite interesting, and I think it's quite contributive. Yes.
Okay. And would you say that because I know the project, you were also looking at pricing, right? In the end, you use the model for pricing. So
yes.
A follow-up question is, based on the modeling you've done, is there a model which is better suited for pricing, or does that depend on the
so
price?
it depends. Okay, I get your point. So it depends on your what kind of pricing you are trying to implement. So if you are talking about for example, perhaps more equitable duration dependent parking pricing. So how much you pay depends on how long you park. Then I would definitely say the third model, which is tree-based model, is best suited for this particular application. Because as I mentioned, the tree-based model is able to account for user heterogeneity. So different users might have different parking durations. So given this capability, this type of duration-dependent parking can be handled by the tree-based model for sure. So, but of course, for the accumulation-based model, it's a little bit hard. So of course, for this particular application, I would go for tree-based model.
But in that case, you say it accounts for user heterogeneity.
Yes.
Does that mean that users have to declare their value of time to get the right price?
So in the model, in the tree-based model, of course we have a mode choice, and the mode so the mode choice, of course you need to have some parameters, because and actually, so I didn't mention this, but within the tree-based model, we have a mode choice. We have a parking choice model, which is actually estimated by Dr. Farshid at UNSW. So he's working on some choice. A discrete choice analysis. So I just use his model, but of course, yes. So of course, we need to have some information of individual travelers in terms of their choice making.
Okay, that's interesting. And did the Randwick Council, did you present those results to them too?
Yes, we actually had a collaborative meeting a few days ago. So we presented all the results, and I believe the council is quite happy about the results.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Do you think they'll implement some of the?
No. I think there are a large delay in implementing the sensors and sharing the data. mainly because of the pandemic situation. So, and interesting that I think the people who are supposed to install the sensors, they might come from Melbourne. So I think probably right now
Okay,
it's
yeah.
a bit hard for them to travel. So there are large delays. So yeah, so maybe the installation has to be postponed to 2021. But
Okay.
yeah, so
Because I think I don't know. I think we received an email from the Randwick City Council. Maybe not everyone received that, but I received that saying smart parking is coming to Coogee Beach, and I thought that this was
oh,
they talked about the LED smart signs. You know, so lighting,
okay.
But I don't know if it had anything to do with your project. Maybe it's just a separate project.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. You're, okay. Okay. Well, I think I've asked enough questions. Are there any other questions from the audience? Yeah, Tanapan, please go ahead. You can either write or.
Okay, all right. Thank you for your presentation, Frank. I just have one question. Maybe I missed it. What sort of microscopic behavior that can be captured by microsim and maybe lose along the way in your microscopic in accumulation based or truth based? So.
Okay. Thank you, Jonathan, for the question. So, what type of microscopic behavior can the microscopic model capture? So here, so basically, in the microscopic model, so these are the behavior modeling of each individual traveler. So for every traveler or parker, so first, it should make a global parking location choice, and this is done by a built-in multinomial logic model in the simulation model. So based on this parking location choice, the parker will have a target parking lot, and when he drives all the way to the target parking lot, there are two conditions. There are two possible conditions. So first, the target parking lot is not fully occupied. So then, under such circumstances, this parker can successfully park because they are free spaces. And so of course, it parks and it will redepart from this parking space when the parking duration is fully covered. So this is the behavior modeling of this parker if the target parking lot is not fully occupied. But if the target parking lot is fully occupied, it's going to be a different story. So then, when this parker reaches the destination parking lot, because it's full, it has to do some local parking search, and this is the microscopic behavior that I was referring to. So of course, for example, as I explained, that in this figure for a typical four-way intersection, so let's say the target parking lot, which is indicated by red, is full. So of course, when the parker reaches this target lot, it cannot park, and it has to drive further away to find a free spot. And here there are three possible candidate lots that the parker can select in the downstream of the intersection. And what we did was to randomly choose from these three candidate lots with equal probability, so that the parker can choose one of them and continue his search. So let's see if the parker chooses to the candidate lot in the upper section. So then again, a similar procedure will continue. If this parking lot is full, then it has to further cruise downstream to the next intersection and make another random choice. So these are altogether these are the microscopic behavior of each individual traveler in the network. And of course, as you can see, this is based on the principle of proximity, because the parker is always trying to park in the vicinity of his destination parking lot. And of course, this type of behavior cannot be accounted for in the macroscopic model, because in the macroscopic model, the variables that we are tracking or the variables that we are calculating are the accumulation in the network, are the accumulation of vehicles in the network, so obviously that model cannot capture this microscopic behavior. So does this answer your question?
Yes, that's good. And are there any significance in this behavior that show the result in the model, or it's?
What do you mean? Are there any significance in this model?
So like, so does it show in the network that does it show any significance like error based on this?
You mean the errors between different models?
Yeah.
Of course they are. Of course they are. Yes, of course.
Oh, right. Okay.
So let me go back to just one sec. Maybe to this one. Yes. So of course there are deviations or there are errors between different models. You can't have a perfect overlap between the results of the two models, but still. It's reasonably consistent, as you can see. So here, here the results are from the accumulation-based model and the micro-simulation model. So again, of course, you can see that the results of the micro-simulation model is pretty much like fluctuating around the results of the accumulation-based model. But in some sense, the accumulation-based model is like tracking the mean performance or the average performance of the microscopic simulation model.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Frank. I'll stop the meeting now because people might have other commitments at 1 p.m.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you everyone for attending. There will be another meeting, same place, same time next week. That will be announced soon. I'm just waiting for a few details to come through. So thank you all. Have a good day and see you next week.
Yeah, see ya.